Hey everyone, Michael T here. I know it's been a while since I've sent out an update, but I just wanted to make sure that we are all caught up to speed, especially as we close out September and welcome in October. So I just wanted to start us off with a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. So I want everyone to pause and reflect. What does this quote mean for us as educators? What does this quote mean for our fellows as they navigate, the last 2 years of high school, as well as contemplate on what their post-secondary pathway is? So that staircase, sometimes it might be leading to something very ambiguous, like just the word success. What does success mean for each and one of us? What does success mean for our fellows? And what are those steps to success? So when I thought about this quote, I was thinking of MC Escher's sketch of man, I remember when I was a program director, I was like, what direction am I headed in? What direction are my fellows headed in? What are those concrete steps to actually get them there? And it could be all very overwhelming at times and also very confusing. So I wanted us to pause and kind of reground ourselves on what are our key outcomes for this year. So our key outcome is growth. All right, so what are those areas of growth? Well, one, we want to grow in our relationships with our fellows, and we want those relationships between our fellows to grow with one another. We also want our fellows to grow in terms of their selectivity. We know that this will open up many more pathways or many more doors for our fellows, both in terms of admissions, but also in terms of financial aid. And then in terms of that post-secondary pathway, we want to give our fellows as much exposure as possible to all the possibilities that lie in front of them so that they could live choice-filled lives. So let's talk about those relationships. One of our priorities for the first couple months has been cohort culture, establishing personal vision for our fellows, and really getting to know our fellows on a one-on-one basis so that we could really identify who our lower selectivity fellows are, as well as our special circumstance fellows. Excuse me, I'm over at Mickey Leland right now. Okay, so special circumstance could be anyone that might be a teenage parent or has special needs, or might be a student of undocumented status, right? So really, the only way to really find that out is if you build trust with your fellows. So again, this is having one-on-one conversations. Maybe you could even utilize small group spaces in terms of hey, this is where our GPA is for this group, right? I've seen this done very well in Mr. Jones's class over at Yes Prep Northbrook, in which he kind of partitioned out these different brackets of their GPA so that a student with a 1.7 GPA might not be sitting next to a student with a 3.2 GPA, and you could differentiate those conversations. I've seen community circles, I've seen Socratic seminars, I've seen story sharing. All of this helps build those relationships. In terms of selectivity, we're talking about academics. We're talking about GPA and SAT or ACT scores. So historically, our Y1 goals for the year have been an increase by 0.13 of a GPA point, as well as an increase of an SAT score by 140 points, which is equivalent to about 3 points on the ACT. Know that these two numbers, or three numbers, your GPA and your test scores, do not define you as a person. That's the same message that I told my fellows. But these are key levers into those doors that are open for you in terms of post-secondary pathways. So coming up with either class action plans or individualized action plans, utilizing resources like Khan Academy, which is free, or maybe your campus has an initiative to utilize Kaplan or Princeton Review or Test Rocker or any of those different service providers. And then I think kind of hidden or at the base of all of this is really developing a lot of those non-cognitive skills. So working with fellows to help them have those conversations with other teachers, to approach them and ask for when their tutorial hours are, to act professionally, to have those communication skills as well as those organizational skills that translate into that academic success. So even though the headlines are GPA score or SAT or ACT, really underneath all of that is do you know how to play the high school game? Do you know how to play the college game? Do you know how to play the academic professional game? And then our third growth area is going to be post-secondary pathways. Again, we want as much exposure That way our fellows can live choice-filled lives. So we want at least a minimum of 12 colleges of consideration. This might be in October or November, depending on your pacing calendar. And in the spring, we're going to whittle down that list of 12 down to at least 7. And this is going to be based on best fit criteria, which are going to be determined by the fellows. Like, is it going to be financial? Is it going to be geographical? Is it going to be any of these components in terms of like major or extracurriculars that they are considering? So there's a handful of resources out there for you. There's the selectivity charts that are on the wiki page. There's the College of Consideration tool, which is also on the wiki page. Assured admissions in Texas, and also some strategies like really developing a strong essay that might be able to secure financial aid for them or admissions for them. And then as well as having fellows apply to as many summer ops opportunities as possible. So that really builds up their resume and their CV, so that they could get into internships or get into those highly selective scholarships or institutions. All right, so I'm going to pause here. This is kind of where we are in terms of recentering ourselves, thinking about that staircase, thinking about those steps, and these are the 3 big steps for the year. In the next part of the video, I'm going to go over some of the logistics of what's going to come up in October, as well as what's happening right now.